विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरि 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 राम 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 हरि हरि. In the last session we talked about sinful food and sinless food, and we talked about milk. So this is a timeless truth that cow's milk is the most nourishing food for us. There is no doubt about it. We've been consuming this milk since time immemorial. Our ancestors, they used to consume this milk, and also it is recommended in our scriptures. Yet the milk that we consume today is sinful because of the dairy practices in today's world. They are very sinful and violent. So by drinking this milk and eating the dairy products, on one side we are promoting those sinful actions done by these dairy farms, and on the other side we are eating cruelty. We are consuming violence, the pains of the animals. This is all going inside our consciousness, because by this we don't just destroy our bodies, we destroy our consciousness. This food feeds violence in our consciousness. We become violent. Just like what meat does to us, this food does the same. So apart from being sinful food, this food, as we learned in the last session, is also extremely unhealthy. We also got to know that WHO, the World Health Organization, has warned India for this contaminated milk. If India continues to drink this milk, 87% of India will have fatal diseases like cancer. And if this body is a priceless gift given to us by God for spiritual journey, see, the soul is journeying its spiritual perfection in this body, and we cannot be so brutal to this body, and we cannot be brutal to God. So we learned that there is so much of cancer which is increasing, and today you can see all around, cancer was not so popular a disease. It was a terrifying thing if you get to know that somebody in the family has cancer, but now cancer is becoming such an everyday thing of life, like diabetes. And we need to take the warning of WHO very seriously, because the milk that we are getting at our house is a kind of white poison, and it's not the milk that is recommended in the scripture. In the scripture, you need to serve the cow with love, and then we can have that milk. This is not the same milk. So, and when we talked about the cancer, it's a very unimaginable situation right now, because once we face it, only then we can actually understand what is the intensity of this situation. So I have an experience of my cousin sister who actually lost her life last year because of cancer, and she was telling me how she used to spend about 2 lakh rupees every 21 days on her injection, and her one son, who was doing job in Australia, he had to leave and come back. Her other son was always so stressed, he would never be really interested or willing or get the strength of going for a job, so he would stay at home. And her husband also was always in deep stress. So for those 2-3 years, she went through this fatal disease, and she went through all of that family turmoil in these 3 years. She said, it's better I die, because I can't see my family in this condition. So when cancer happens in the family, it's not for one person, and everybody has to really suffer a lot during this process. So that's why we call this commercial milk as a white poison. Some of you might say that, okay, our milk is coming from Goshala or from some organic source, but my question is, how do we know if these cows are happy? from where this milk is coming, is it really worth taking the risk? Is it really worth taking the chance? So when I was asked the same question when I turned vegan, I said no, I cannot take this chance. Of course, we are addicted by our habits, but somehow this violence that is happening and this kind of white poison which is coming to us is such a big reality that we cannot, turn our eyes from this. So some of you might say that, milk is very good for health. It's for physical nourishment and for our bones will be weak if we don't drink milk. But please note that this is not the true. In fact, just the opposite is true. Some of the most celebrated sportsmen, including Virat Kohli of Indian cricket team and the thousands of the other ones in the different parts of the world, and bodybuilders and the wrestlers, they are all turned vegan. Not because of animal cruelty, but they have turned vegan because they wanted to increase their energy levels to play more and to lift more weights. They're getting more energy from this food, from plant-based diet.
You know when you eat something whether it's healthy for you or not. So I never approached a nutritionist. I thought, okay, fine. I know the things that are not healthy, not good for you to eat, and I'm going to figure my way out myself. And I was off dairy as well, raw dairy and meat, and I was like, this is unbelievable. I could never imagine that changing my diet would help me in such a massive way. In the World Cup just now that we played, every game my energy was 120%.
That's my body double. That's the Boston Philharmonic, and this is where it gets ridiculous.
How'd you do that?
Simple. Plant-based diet.
Today we are going to continue the topic of sinless eating that we started in the last session. The food that we eat is not only the nourishment for our body, the food is actually nourishing our mind and our soul. So broadly, the food is categorized into sinful food and sinless food. So what we are going to discuss today is why do we eat and what to eat, and of course what not to eat, how to eat and how not to eat, how much to eat and how much not to eat, when to eat and when not to eat, where to eat and where not to eat. So today is going to be quite an extensive session on food, and we will see the spiritual relevance to all of this. So first question is, why do we eat? What are all the different roles that food plays in our life? Why do we eat? What's the purpose of eating? See, we started with purpose of life, and now we are discussing to purpose of eating. We might find it quite irrelevant and unrelated to Bhagavad Gita class. Why are we talking about eating so much? But Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says that the purpose of life and the food that we eat are very closely linked. And today we will read some Bhagavad Gita verses on this subject matter. So the food that we eat defines who we are. It's so important in our life. So it influences our consciousness, not just the physical body, it influences our consciousness. If we are too much angry or calm, if we are too happy or distressed, depends on the food that we consume, how we consume it, and from where we consume it. Everything matters. Let's say if you take a bread cooked from a restaurant or a bakery shop, the consciousness of that person who has cooked that bread, it enters into it and it affects us. By eating such a bread regularly, our mentality and desires will be actually same as the mentality and desires of the person who has prepared that grain. This mentality and this desires of that person, that chef, it travels to our consciousness. Even if it is invisible, we can't see that, but it does travel to us. So this food is carrying a lot more with it that we can't see. the consciousness, the vibrations. This principle is not esoteric principle which it might seem like that. It's like, imagine an artist who creates a painting and he expresses his thought through that painting. When the painting comes to the gallery, the viewer of the painting, the people who appreciate that painting, they will see the mind, the mental state of the artist. The painting is a reflection of artist's state of mind. Same is with the food. Food carries the chef's state of mind. See, another crude example could be computer virus. When we use the computer, sometimes a virus comes inside from the external sources, which is invisible to us, but it slowly destroys the computer software. Same with the food. So, feelings of the chef could be like the virus coming to our food. And we can't afford this virus. We've got this human birth after so many lives. We are now on the last ladder of the spiritual journey. So we must eat the food that is nourishing for the soul. Totally sinless. The food must be nourishing for the body. Because body is a vehicle for the soul and is helping the soul in achieving its purpose. But first, we are souls, not the body. And we must eat that is favorable to our spiritual journey. Now, in our spiritual journey, we need to be conscious about our mind. When we say spiritual progress, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, our mind could be our biggest enemy, it could be our best friend in this journey of spirituality. So, it's like when we play the games, we need to cross some hurdles and some challenges. And once we cross those challenges and those hurdles, we can win the game. Same way, controlling the mind is like the challenge given to this game of life. Once we cross this challenge or control our mind, then we'll be able to safely say that we are into the spiritual journey. We'll be safe in our spiritual journey. Mind is important to be controlled during this journey. And now the question is, can food control the mind? And for that, we'll understand first, what is mind? What is mind? Mind is a storehouse of desires. It flashes desires. So usually when the mind is weak, it falls into the trap of the senses like tongue, eyes, nose, ears, skin, and it starts to become a slave in the hands of these senses. And now we need to strengthen our mind. We need to strengthen our mind so it is not trapped into the hands of the senses. So how can we strengthen the mind? We need to train the mind from someone higher than the mind. Because the senses are lower than the mind. And what is higher to the mind? Soul is higher than the mind. And Srila Prabhupada says that all the sense control starts from spiritualizing our tongue. Of course, we will be using the senses, but we need to spiritualize those senses like tongue. So if we spiritualize our tongue by offering Krishna offered prasadam only to this tongue, we can control all the senses. Srila Prabhupada says, if we control the tongue, we can control the mind, we can control all the senses. It's so important. Otherwise this 2-inch organ in our body is responsible for billions of animals being brutally killed for this tongue.
अक्सर उनकी माँ और साथियों को निर्दयता से उनकी आंखों के सामने मारा जाता है। मांस उद्योग ने जानवरों को मारने के कई तरीके विकसित किए हैं। हैमर स्लॉटर इन्हीं में से एक अमानवीय तरीका है, जिसमें कसाई हथौड़े से जानवर के सिर पे लगातार वार करती रहता है।
So this is so important to spiritualize our tongue. So when Srila Prabhupada went to New York, even a short while, the young boys and girls who are now big devotees, they joined him in the first year and they became so clear about the whole philosophy. They were chanting with so much of reverence. How is it possible for somebody who had no prior experience to spirituality, they had no spiritual qualification, they were like Prabhupada says, they are not Vedantists, rather they were the alcoholists, they were the meat eaters. That's what was their life before they joined this movement, before they met Srila Prabhupada. How could, in such a short time, they became such big devotees? How could they purify their senses, their mind so easily? So Srila Prabhupada says their mind got purified through tongue and not through intelligence. There is so much of spiritual potency in Krishna Prasadam. So to answer the question, why do we eat? We eat for our spiritual progress. And spiritual progress, what does it mean? It means constant pleasure in our life, constant happiness. The happiness that never stops. It's always there. It's not dependent on the senses. It's not dependent on the outer situations. It's just always there. We experience the happiness all the time. So what we eat and how we eat, it is extremely crucial to our feelings, to our thoughts, our willpower, and finally to our constant happiness or constant distress. This is what Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Now next question is, what should we eat? Chapter 17 verse 8, 9 and 10, when Krishna is explaining how people in the mode of goodness and mode of passion and mode of ignorance, what do they eat and how do they feel after they eat what they eat. So Krishna says, food in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence and give strength, health, happiness and satisfaction. Such nourishing foods are sweet, juicy, fattening and palatable. So God has told us that these foods, they increase the duration of life. They purify our existence. They give the strength to us, happiness to us, health to us, satisfaction to us. And these foods are foods coming from the farm, juicy foods, fruits and vegetables. And palatable food, which are tasty, which we love, which we like it. Not the food like coffee, like all these alcohol and all these things which are really not palatable. We have just forced them onto us. They are not originally palatable to us. And then in the next verse, Lord Krishna says, foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, pungent, dry and hot are liked by people in the mode of passion. And such foods cause pain, distress and disease. So Krishna himself is telling us that these foods are causing us pain, distress and disease. And the third level, mode of ignorance, foods cooked more than 3 hours before being eaten, which is tasteless, stale, putrid, decomposed and unclean, is food liked by people in the mode of ignorance. So Krishna has himself taught us in different modes of material nature, or different modes people eat different kinds of food. And we should be eating the food that is in the mode of goodness, sattvic. So this is something coming from Bhagavad Gita, from God himself. And the knowledge that is given in Bhagavad Gita is really holding the deep value to our life. That's why we call Bhagavad Gita as a life manual. So if there is a life, we need to know how to live this life. And Bhagavad Gita is the knowledge that tells us how to live this life. Just like a manual that comes with a computer or any machine. Another food that we need to avoid is onion and garlic. Why? Because this is tamasic, in the mode of ignorance. When we eat this food, our material desires increases. These foods, they feed the material desires in our mind. And then eventually, by these foods, we make mind as our biggest enemy, not our friend. So how do we eat? What is the process of eating? How to eat? I mean, you might be saying that, what are you teaching me? How to eat? All of us, we know how to eat. We learned that for killing innocent animals, the law of state, our government, they might have allowed us and they may not act upon us. They may not punish us. But the law of karma and the law of nature will surely punish us for eating meat. And now the question comes, even the plants and the fruits and vegetables, they've got the life in it. Is it not sinful, according to the Vedic injunctions, to eat fruits and vegetable, to eat that life inside that? This is really a valid question. one should know this answer from supreme authority, from Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that it is even sinful to eat fruits and vegetables since there is life in it. We are not even allowed to eat fruits and vegetables just directly picking up and eating it because there is life inside that. At the same time, the scripture says Jiva Jivasya Jivanam, which means life comes from life. Also, Subha explained that we have to eat living food. We don't have to eat dead food. All these food which is coming in plastic tins and cans, this is all, what is this? Dead food. If you put them in the ground, no life will come from that. But if you put the seeds in the ground or the apple in the ground, the seeds inside the apple will give birth to another apple. So life comes from life. So on one side we have to eat the living food, on the other side there is life inside the living food. How do we eat? It's sinful. And Krishna himself is saying it's sinful. So there is a way that Krishna has, yes, you already guessed it right. So there is a way that Krishna has explained to us in Bhagavad Gita how to eat. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, water, I will accept it. That's 9.26. And in 9.27 Krishna says, O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. तो भगवान ने कहा है कि whatever you do, you should, whether food or anything, it is an offering unto God. And then in chapter 3, 13th verse, Krishna says, the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. So Krishna says, when we eat the food for our sense enjoyment, we eat sins. So it is sinful. So we never realize, but this is a fact, that we are eating sins if we are not following the process of offering it to the Lord. So Lord on one side is clearly telling us, you should offer everything to me as a sacrifice. And on the other side he says, those who don't do this, those who don't offer the food and they are just eating for the sense gratification, only to them it is sinful. So the answer to this, how to eat the food, even fruits and vegetables and everything that we consume, that it becomes sinless. Not only sinless, rather it becomes auspicious, is the way of offering it to the Lord. What happens when we offer it to the Lord? So God has got the higher, very high inner potency. Inner potency means spiritual potency, to elevate any spirit from its current spiritual journey to the next level of spiritual journey. And for that reason, we offer these fruits and vegetables and grains to the Lord, so that Lord can elevate the spiritual progress of these fruits and vegetables. This is the purpose of offering the food to the Lord. By this process, Lord elevates these fruits and vegetables in their spiritual journey and also make the entire food completely sinless for us to consume. Since it is offered to the Lord, it becomes prasadam. What is prasadam? Prasadam is the remnants of the Lord. So it is the most auspicious food with extremely high spiritual potency. It becomes a spiritual food which nourishes not only the physical body but also the soul. And it helps us fight the mind. Those of you who want to learn how to offer prasadam to the Lord, please feel free to call Megha. Her number is 98994 69009. So she will be the right person. She will understand from you your food habits, the situations like if you have the temple in the house or not, and based on which she will guide you how to offer the food or set up the temple at the house. Now, we eat this food not also in the consciousness of consuming the food for our sense enjoyment. I mean, I'm talking about Krishna Prasadam. There's a way to consume this food. There's a consciousness that is required. We will be discussing this in a separate session, how to have the mindful eating, which will be the next session. What are the things to keep in mind? Because this is such a deep subject of even, okay, we offer it to the Lord, the way we cook the food, the way we offer the food, and then finally the way we consume it on the table or on the floor, how we consume it is extremely important for us to also understand. Even that has a very strong impact on our consciousness. So it calls for a completely separate session, which will be the next session. Next question is, how much should we eat? So chapter 6, verse 16, Lord Krishna says, there is no possibility of one becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too less, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. So Krishna says that you cannot be mad about fasting, that you're fasting all the time. So you need to take the food, sufficient food, or let's say not eat too much or not eat too less. Although Srila Prabhupada says when there is an option of eating too much or eating too less, then you should go for eating too less, not for eating too much. Because most of the disease are not coming from eating too much, it's coming from eating too less. No, opposite. Most of diseases are coming from eating too much and not from eating too less. And then next verse, chapter 6, verse 17, Krishna says, he who is temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, working and recreation can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So, Lord has explained to us very clearly in Bhagavad Gita that we need to create a balance of the food. So, not eat too much, not eat too less. Now, another important point is when to eat and when not to eat. So, our scriptures have recommended many fasts on the most auspicious days when we do not eat. One of the most important time when we do not eat is the days of Ekadashi. Now today we will also discuss a little bit about what is Ekadashi. Ekadashi is observed on every 11th day of the moon cycle, both from the full moon and from the new moon. So they come twice in a month. So total 26 Ekadashis in a year. Each Ekadashi has a name and its significance. There is a story attached to each Ekadashi which you can read in one of the Ekadashi books. So devotees observe Ekadashi fasting actually to seek God's blessings, to please the Lord. Any kind of sacrifice that we do, it's actually purifying. It is for the taking the mercy of the Lord. But according to the scriptures, we perform this particular sacrifice of observing fasting on these 2 days in a month for the spiritual benefit, and the spiritual benefit is immense by observing the Ekadashi fasting. And the opposite is also true. If we eat grains and if we don't observe the fasting on Ekadashi, it is immensely sinful. I'm sorry to sound very strong on this point, but I'm just reflecting back on you what is mentioned in the scriptures. So it is very, very sinful when we do not observe Ekadashi. It is good for the body, it is good for the soul, it is good for the karmic cleansing. You know, we have the karmic infections, and to disinfect our karmic reactions, we need to do certain spiritual activities, and that's why we are conducting these Gita sessions, so that we understand what is right and what is wrong. And Ekadashi fasting is one of the most critical things in our life, because we will not accumulate the new karmas, and we will cleanse millions of lives of karmas by just observing Ekadashi fasting. So from any age, from 8 years to 80 years, anybody can observe the fasting.
हरे कृष्णा। श्रीमद् भागवतम दूसरा स्कंद 3रा अध्याय और 23वां श्लोक। श्रील प्रभुपाद तात्पर्य में लिखते हैं कि जब किसी इंसान की मृत्यु होती है तो उसे मृत कहते हैं, लेकिन जब वही इंसान सूक्ष्म शरीर में फिर से प्रकट होता है जिसे हमारी आंखें नहीं देख सकती, लेकिन फिर भी वह कार्य करता है, तो उसे भूत कहते हैं। ऐसे भूत योनि में जाने वाले जीवों का भी उद्धार कर सकती है ये अपरा एकादशी। अपार धन संपत्ति और पुण्य प्रदान करने वाली एकादशी यानी अपरा एकादशी, इसे अचला एकादशी के नाम से भी जाना जाता है। ये एकादशी ज्येष्ठ मास के कृष्ण पक्ष में आती है और इसका पालन करने से व्यक्ति ब्रह्म हत्या, भूत योनि, पर स्त्री गमन, दूसरों की निंदा आदि पापों से मुक्त हो सकता है। और इतना ही नहीं, ये एकादशी झूठ जनित पाप से भी मुक्त करती है, जैसे कि झूठ बोलना, झूठी गवाही देना, झूठा शास्त्र पढ़ना और झूठा ज्योतिषी बनना। जी हाँ, जो व्यक्ति अपने स्वार्थ के लिए ज्योतिष विद्या का झूठा प्रचार करता है या शास्त्रों को तोड़ मरोड़ कर गलत तरीके से प्रस्तुत करता है तो उसे भी पाप लगता है। लेकिन अच्छी बात यह है कि ऐसे पाप भी इस अपरा एकादशी का पालन करने से खत्म हो जाते हैं। तो चलिए अब हम इस एकादशी का महात्म्य दर्शाती हुई एक वैदिक कथा सुनते हैं और इस कथा के अंत में हम आपको अपरा एकादशी का पालन करने से प्राप्त होने वाले मुख्य 3 प्रकार के लाभ के विषय में विस्तार पूर्वक जानकारी देंगे। और उसके लिए इस वीडियो के अंत तक हमारे साथ बने रहिएगा। अब हम आपको लेकर चलते हैं प्राचीन काल में, जहां महिध्वज नाम का एक महान और धर्मात्मा राजा राज्य करता था। उसके राज्य में प्रजा हर प्रकार से सुखी थी, लेकिन कहते हैं ना कि अच्छी चीजों में भी बुराई देखने वाले कुछ लोग तो होते ही हैं। उसी तरह राजा महिध्वज का छोटा भाई वज्रध्वज बड़ा ही क्रूर, अधर्मी और अन्यायी था। राजा महिध्वज की लोकप्रियता के कारण वह राजा से द्वेष करता था। दिन प्रतिदिन उसके द्वेष की ज्वाला इतनी बढ़ती गई कि आखिर एक दिन उसने रात्रि के अंधकार में राजा महिध्वज की हत्या कर दी और उसके शव को एक जंगली पीपल के पेड़ के नीचे गाड़ दिया। राजा महिध्वज की इस प्रकार अकाल मृत्यु होने की वजह से राजा प्रेत योनि में चला गया। वह उसी पीपल के पेड़ के ऊपर रहने लगा और चारों ओर उत्पात मचाने लगा। एक दिन ईश्वर इच्छा से महान धौम्य ऋषि उसी पीपल के पास से होकर गुजरे। उन्होंने उस पेड़ पर वास करते हुए राजा के प्रेत को देखा और अपने तपोबल से ये भी जान लिया कि ये प्रेत पूर्व जन्म में कौन था और उसकी यह गति कैसे हुई। उस उदार मन वाले ऋषि ने प्रेत को पेड़ से उतारा और उसे परलोक विद्या का ज्ञान दिया। दयावश ऋषि धौम्य ने राजा को प्रेत योनि से मुक्त करने के लिए स्वयं ही अपरा एकादशी का अनुष्ठान किया और उससे उन्हें जो पुण्य फल प्राप्त हुआ उसे राजा को अर्पित कर दिया। इस पुण्य फल के प्रताप से राजा की प्रेत योनि से मुक्ति हो गई। इतना ही नहीं, उसने ऋषि के प्रति धन्यवाद प्रकट किया और प्रेत योनि से छूटकर वह राजा दिव्य देह धारण करके पुष्पक विमान में बैठकर स्वर्ग लोक चला गया। जब युधिष्ठिर महाराज ने भगवान श्री कृष्ण से ज्येष्ठ मास में आने वाली एकादशी के विषय में पूछा तो भगवान श्री कृष्ण ने उन्हें ये कथा सुनाई थी। लेकिन अपरा एकादशी के महत्व को दर्शाती हुई कथा का ये तो सिर्फ एक छोटा सा हिस्सा है। क्या आप और जानना चाहते हैं? तो चलिए अब हम आपको मुख्य 3 कारण बताते हैं कि ये एकादशी हमें क्यों करनी चाहिए। पहला, इस पृथ्वी पर हर मनुष्य किसी न किसी रूप में छोटा हो या बड़ा, जानबूझकर हो या अनजाने में, लेकिन पाप करता ही है। कोई भी इससे बच नहीं पाया। तो इसलिए भगवान श्री कृष्ण युधिष्ठिर महाराज को आगे बताते हैं कि ये एकादशी का व्रत पाप रूपी वृक्ष को काटने के लिए कुल्हाड़ी के समान, पाप रूपी ईंधन को जलाने के लिए अग्नि के समान, पाप रूपी अंधकार को मिटाने के लिए सूर्य के समान और मृगों को मारने के लिए सिंह के समान है। इसलिए प्रत्येक मनुष्य को अपने पाप कर्मों से बचने के लिए भी इस एकादशी का पालन करना अत्यंत आवश्यक है। भगवान ये भी कहते हैं कि जो मनुष्य अपरा एकादशी का पालन करता है वह हर प्रकार के पाप कर्मों से मुक्त होकर विष्णु लोक में जाता है। दूसरा, अब हम बात करते हैं कुछ ऐसे पाप कर्मों के बारे में जिन्हें शास्त्रों में अत्यंत निंदनीय बताया गया है। जैसे कि जो क्षत्रिय युद्ध में शत्रु का सामना करने के बजाय डर से भाग जाता है, और जो शिष्य अपने गुरु से शिक्षा ग्रहण करने के बाद उसकी निंदा करता है, उनके लिए नर्क का द्वार खुलता है। लेकिन अगर ऐसे व्यक्ति भी पूर्ण निष्ठा से अपरा एकादशी का पालन करें तो वे इस जघन्य पाप से मुक्त हो जाते हैं और उन्हें स्वर्ग की प्राप्ति होती है। तीसरा लाभ, कई बार हम अपने दैनिक जीवन और जिम्मेदारियों में इतने व्यस्त हो जाते हैं कि हम अपनी आध्यात्मिक उन्नति के लिए पुण्य कार्य करने का समय ही नहीं निकाल पाते। हमारे शास्त्रों में बताया गया है कि कुछ कार्य ऐसे हैं जो करने से मनुष्य को अपार पुण्य की संपदा प्राप्त होती है, जैसे कि कार्तिक पूर्णिमा को पुष्कर में स्नान करना, गंगा तट पर पितरों को पिंडदान देना, मकर के सूर्य में प्रवेश करते ही प्रयागराज में स्नान करना, शिवरात्रि का व्रत रखना, सिंह राशि के बृहस्पति में आते ही गोमती नदी में स्नान करना, कुंभ में केदारनाथ या बद्रीनाथ के दर्शन करना, सूर्य ग्रहण में कुरुक्षेत्र में स्नान करना, सुवर्ण दान करना और अर्ध प्रसूता गाय का दान देना। लेकिन यदि आप इनमें से कोई भी स्नान, दान या दर्शन नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन फिर भी ये सारे पुण्य अर्जित करना चाहते हैं, तो आपके पास एकमात्र सर्वश्रेष्ठ उपाय है अपरा एकादशी का पालन। इस एकादशी का व्रत करने से आपको ये सारे पुण्य फल प्राप्त हो सकते हैं। भगवान श्री कृष्ण ने अंत में युधिष्ठिर महाराज से कहा कि जो भी व्यक्ति इस एकादशी का पालन करता है या इस कथा का श्रवण करता है तो वह समस्त प्रकार के पापों से मुक्त हो जाता है। अब हम देखते हैं कि यदि कोई इस एकादशी का पालन करना चाहे तो कैसे करें। सबसे पहले तो जो व्यक्ति इस व्रत का पालन करना चाहता है उसे एकादशी के दिन सुबह ब्रह्म मुहूर्त में उठकर स्नान इत्यादि से शुद्ध हो जाना चाहिए। उसके बाद वह भगवान श्री कृष्ण की मंगल आरती करे या उसका दर्शन करे। तत्पश्चात व्यक्ति को भगवान श्री कृष्ण के पवित्र नाम का जाप करना चाहिए। हमारे आचार्य बताते हैं कि एकादशी के दिन ज्यादा से ज्यादा हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र यानी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे का जाप करना चाहिए। एकादशी के दिन किसी भी प्रकार का अन्न, दाल, चावल या फलियां खाना वर्जित है। इस दिन फल, दूध, जल या एकादशी प्रसाद ले सकते हैं। व्यक्ति को अपनी शारीरिक क्षमता के अनुसार इनमें से किसी भी वस्तु के साथ एकादशी का उपवास करना चाहिए। एकादशी व्रत का पालन करने के लिए सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि उस दिन ज्यादा से ज्यादा मात्रा में भगवान के नाम का जाप किया जाए और पर निंदा से बचा जाए। तो चलिए अपार आध्यात्मिक संपदा प्रदान करने वाली इस अपरा एकादशी का पालन करें और अपनी चेतना को शुद्ध करें। हरे कृष्णा।
So what are the foods forbidden during Ekadashi? It's observed basically at different levels depending on what makes you feel comfortable. The best Ekadashi is to be without any water, without any food. It's called Nirjala Ekadashi. This is exactly what the devotees follow. Try to start from at least the fruit fasting. So there is no need for any of these grains. See, it's very easy. We need to get into the habit of taming our mind. It's not going to come to us very natural that we will stop enjoying what we are enjoying today. So we'll have to make some effort. We'll definitely get the spiritual strength when we read Bhagavad Gita and when we start chanting. But let us take some baby steps towards, okay, let me not eat these non-grain foods like kuttu ka atta and all. Let me start with the fruit fasting. Let me also move to the next level. So as we keep doing this, we will also gain more and more spiritual strength because our karmas will get cleansed by doing so. Other things that we need to do is we need to engage ourselves in chanting as many rounds as possible and also reading the Bhagavad Gita and also going to the temple. All these things are very important on the Ekadashi. Ekadashi is actually not feeding yourself from the food that we eat, but feeding yourself from spirituality. So this is really what is pleasing to the Lord. Now, next question is, where do we eat and where do we not eat? So, very important is we should not eat which is a place or a kitchen which is like a graveyard for for so many living entities, where the food is cooked, what we eat, and at the same time some dead bodies are also cooked in the same kitchen. And you know what I'm saying. I'm saying all these restaurants and cafes where meat is being cooked, meat is being served, is not the place where we should be eating our food from. We have to really avoid that, because the consciousness of these places is not, favorable for our spiritual journey. So where can we eat? We can eat food from places like, the best is eating from Govinda restaurant from ISKCON, because the food offered there is offered to the Lord and it's prasadam. And if we can't do that, again we can go to some fruit shops and have the fruits there. We can go to some vegetarian food places, although not recommended, but still, if as a first step into this, you can go to Haldiram, Bikaner Wala, and even better than that actually is going to a vegan place where there is not even a milk, some vegan restaurant where there is no milk. So you can choose. The most important thing here is that we first stop eating where meat is being cooked and served. All the restaurants and hotels and places where meat is cooked, it's something which we need to avoid immediately. So today we learned in this session, why do we eat what do we eat? We eat food for our spiritual journey. What do we eat? We eat the food that is nourishing to the soul. It is sattvic food. It's water-rich, juicy food, wholesome food coming from the farm. How do we eat? We eat it by offering it to the Lord first. And in the next session, we will also discuss how to consume it internally. We also discussed today, when do we eat? So we don't eat during the Ekadashis. We can actually cleanse lots of our sins just by not eating on the Ekadashi days. Where do we eat? We don't eat in the places where there are sinful activities of meat cooking and meat serving is happening. And how much to eat? Lord Krishna says, eating not too much and not too less. So we discussed this today, and in the next session we will discuss about mindful eating. Many of you might ask me that when will we start reading Bhagavad Gita? Now we started these sessions for Bhagavad Gita, and we started to talk about food and non-violence and all of these things. So the thing is that so far we have already learned a lot of lessons of Bhagavad Gita. We are already going through Bhagavad Gita. So the lessons of non-violence is coming from Bhagavad Gita. It's one of the knowledge. Non-violence is the knowledge of the soul. Sat Chit Anand. It's coming from Chit part. Non-violence. Purpose of life, again coming from Bhagavad Gita. We are standing on the last ladder, 84 lakh species. All of this is coming from Bhagavad Gita. Karam Yoga, what we need to do, dovetailing ourselves with the Lord. It's again coming from Bhagavad Gita. Sinless living, food recommended as per Bhagavad Gita. All of these are the lessons of Bhagavad Gita. So the course is designed in such a way that you will read the core principles of Bhagavad Gita, and you will not even get to know that the whole Bhagavad Gita is completed. So the message of Bhagavad Gita is very deep, but it's also very, very easy to understand when you are really willing and sincere to understand the Bhagavad Gita. Because these topics that I shared with you, these are very deep topics. But since you are such a sincere audience, you are able to understand these topics so easily. So thank you very much. Let's wait for the next session, and looking forward to seeing you all on Monday. Hare Krishna.